you want to be when you grow up. Maybe you want to be an astronaut or a doctor, or maybe an artist or a musician. Or perhaps you're not quite sure yet and want to take your time to think about it. Hello everyone, I'm Kathleen Pelly. Welcome to Journey with Story. Today's tale is an Encore episode for Easter, and it's an old and very beloved folktale about 3 trees. Remember, I told you that this month all of our stories were going to be featuring the number 3. These 3 trees each dream of becoming something wonderful in the future. But, as is often the case in stories and in our lives, things do not always quite work out the way we think they might. Before we begin, I want to give a big thank you to Anya, who wrote this lovely note to me. Hi, I'm Anya. I am 6 years old and live on the west coast of Scotland, Porton Cross. I love listening to your stories before I go to bed. I love your stories. My favourite story is the one where the boy tricks the king shark so he can go and get the lobsters down from the cave. I would love it if there could be a story with koalas in it. Thanks. Well, thank you, Anya. And you know what? We do have a story about koalas in our podcast. You can check it out as it's episode number 124, and it's called Why Koala Has a Stumpy Tail. Now, let's take an encore Easter journey with The Tale of 3 Trees. Once upon a mountain top, 3 little trees stood and dreamed of what they wanted to become when they grew up. The first little tree looked up at the stars and said, I want to hold treasure. I want to be covered with gold and filled with precious stones. I will be the most beautiful treasure chest in the world. The second little tree looked out at the river trickling by on its way to the ocean. I want to set sail on the high seas, carrying powerful kings. I will be the strongest ship in the world. The third little tree looked down into the valley below, where men and women were hard at work in a busy, bustling town. I don't want to leave the mountain top at all. I want to grow so tall that when people stop to look at me, they'll raise their eyes to heaven and think of God. I will be the tallest tree in the world. Years passed, and the little trees grew tall. One day, 3 woodcutters climbed the mountain. The first woodcutter looked at the first tree and said, This tree is beautiful. It is perfect for me. With a swoop of his shining axe, the first tree fell. Now I shall be made into a beautiful chest. I shall hold wonderful treasure, the first tree said. The second woodcutter looked at the second tree and said, This tree is strong. It is perfect for me. With a swoop of his shining axe, the second tree fell. Now I shall sail the mighty seas, thought the second tree. I shall be a strong ship for noble kings. The third tree felt her heart sink when the last woodcutter looked her way. She stood straight and tall and pointed bravely to heaven. But the woodcutter never even looked up. Any kind of tree will do for me, he muttered. With a swoop of his shining axe, the third tree fell. The first tree rejoiced when the woodcutter brought her to a carpenter's shop, but the carpenter fashioned the tree into a feed box for animals. The once beautiful tree was not covered with gold or filled with treasure. She was coated with sawdust and filled with hay for hungry farm animals. The second tree smiled when the woodcutter took her to a shipyard. But no mighty ship was made that day. Instead, the once strong tree was hammered and chiselled into a simple fishing boat. She was too small and too weak to sail to an ocean or even a river. Instead, she was taken to a small lake. The third tree was bewildered when the woodcutter cut her into strong beams and left her in a lumberyard. What happened? The once tall tree wondered. All I ever wanted was to stay on the mountain top and point to God. Many, many days and nights passed. The three trees nearly forgot their dreams. But one night, silver starlight poured over the first tree as a young woman placed her newborn baby in the feed box. I wish I could make a cradle for him, her husband whispered. The mother squeezed his hand and smiled as the starlight shone on the smooth and the sturdy wood. This manger is beautiful, she said, and suddenly the first tree knew he was holding the greatest treasure in the world. One evening, a tired traveller and his friends crowded into the old fishing boat. The traveller fell asleep as the second tree quietly sailed out into the lake. Soon, a thundering and thrashing storm arose. The little tree shuddered. She knew she did not have the strength to carry so many passengers safely through the wind and the rain. The tired man awakened. He stood up, stretched out his hand, and said, Peace. The storm stopped as quickly as it had begun, and suddenly the second tree knew he was carrying the King of heaven and earth. One Friday morning, the third tree was startled when her beams were hauled away from the forgotten woodpile. She flinched as she was carried through an angry, jeering crowd. She shuddered when soldiers nailed a man's hands to her. As she was lifted up on the mountain top, she felt ugly and harsh and cruel. But on Sunday morning, when the sun rose and the earth trembled with joy beneath her, the third tree knew that God's love had changed everything. Now, every time people saw her, she could point them to God. And so her dream had come true after all. And don't forget, we love to hear from our listeners like Anya. If you want to send us a drawing, go to www.journeywithstory.com, hit on the Contact Us form and download it there. You can also send it to us on Instagram and tag us so we can give you a shout out. Cheerio then. Join me next time for Journey with Story. Music and post-production was by Colette Jonas.